We'll just give it a few minutes for everybody to roll in. Hello, everyone, as you're entering. I have not, over the course of the week, figured out the best way to interact with this. Like the participant, I just like watch the participant number going up and up in the corner as people come in from the waiting room, but I haven't figured out a good way to like greet everybody as they're like walking in. So hello everyone out there in webinar land. Hello, come join us. Come in. Yes. And what I like to do is just ramble for a few seconds while we get everybody in the waiting room to join in. But it looks like we got folks rolling in. So we'll just go ahead and kick everything off here. So thank you very much for everyone joining us today. This, as if you don't know what this is Creative Industries Week, which is a week of sort of online discussions. Got some cool live events across the whole state. They're sort of kicked off yesterday, last night, and continuing through the weekend. And yeah, my name is Mike, and I work for an organization called Creative Startups, and we are working with the New Mexico Economic Development Department to develop a strategic plan for the new Creative Industries Division, which is a new division of the Economic Development Department designed to support folks making a living in the creative economy all across the state, and very exciting. And this week has been full of wonderful conversations about how to make that happen, how to make sure that this division is relevant for artists and creatives in a state where 1 in 9 people make at least part of their living in the creative economy. So it's incredibly vital to the state. And it's also just really cool, you know? And one thing that is a real bright spot, a real potential and current model for success in the creative economy are artists in residence and retreat programs. And so I'm very delighted to be joined here today by two managers and directors of two great artists in residence programs. We've got Angelica Gallegos, who is the interim program manager for the IAIA Artist-in-Residence Program. And we have Katelyn Krakauskas. I should have practiced that before. I'm sorry. Katelyn Krakauskas, who is the executive director at the Roswell Artist-in-Residence Foundation. So thank you both very much for joining us. And let's just jump right into it. We're going to be talking about how can artists and creatives get involved, but also how are these programs so important and economic drivers for the communities in which they exist? And how can maybe folks on the call who are interested in running these kinds of programs, how can they sort of help build their programs to make them really important economic drivers in their communities? So we'll kick it off with Angelica Gallegos, and to tell us a little bit about the IAIA program and everything that y'all do.
Hi, hello everyone, welcome. So the Artist in Resident program at the Institute of American Indian Arts first started in 2015 with I believe 1 staff person and 2 artists in residence. And ever since then, it has grown and grown and continued to grow and just flourish. And this fall, we will actually have 7 artists who will be joining us. So it's just really growing a lot.
And I'm going to share a presentation as well. So just tell me
Okay.
to go. And
yeah, go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. So the program offers residencies ranging from 2 to 8 weeks. We really want to work with our artists coming in because we do understand that sometimes they have families, they have different careers, and they just want to maybe spend either 2 weeks or up to 8 weeks doing their residency. Next semester and this past semester, we had 2 artists in residence who were actually educators themselves. So they couldn't leave their classroom for too long. So what they did is they came to the IAIA campus for about, I think, 3 weeks. And they worked on campus for 3 weeks. And then also they went back home and they continued working um, in their own studios for additional, like, I think, 4 weeks. And we were able to fund them for the full amount of time. The program also provides a generous stipend, which covers travel cost, materials, housing, and meals. So we really do not want to put any financial burden on our artists who come and join us. So we really try to provide them with a generous stipend and house them. We have a great cafe located on the IAIA campus. So they're able to go and eat with the students and the faculty and staff there. And also, our program allows the artists to explore their artwork, different ideas, and interact with our community. So here, this is just a photo of one of our open studios. This was one of our artists, Tamara Ann Berg. She was a printmaker, and actually she paints, she does a lot of really interesting things. And this was one of her open studios that she had. And she's just here interacting with our guests. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So how we like to start off is by having a welcome dinner and an open studio. So whenever our artists first start coming on to campus, we have a welcome dinner for them. And it's free and it's open to the public, it's open to the IAIA community, and it's just really a way for us to share a meal with each other, get to know each other, and just sort of introduce the artists so the staff, faculty, students, and the public are able to put a face to sort of like who's on campus. And they, makes just really welcome them and make them feel comfortable. So after the dinner, the students and the attendees are able to go into their studios where they interact with the artists, and the artists are able to sort of like just discuss a little bit about what projects they'll be working on. So this is towards the beginning of their residency, so they don't have too much work just yet, but they're able to communicate what they will be working on. So this is just a way to sort of introduce everybody. Thank you. Next slide. And then these are just some photos. So we've hosted dinners. This is our gallery on the right-hand side. So we have a lot of students just sitting down, faculty. The gentleman in the red shirt was one of our previous air artists. So yeah, just holding it on campus, different spaces. So like I mentioned, this was the gallery. This other one was just in our common area in our academic building. Next slide, please. We also have artist open studios. So we'll have one, like I mentioned, during the welcome dinner, but then we'll also have one a couple weeks into their residency. And this just, again, allows the artists to talk about the projects they're working on, and sort of the students will be able to just drop in real casual and see the progress that they have made so far in their residency. And just the guests are able to converse with the artists about their practice and their artistic process. And like I mentioned, they get to see firsthand what they're working on. Next, thank you. So this is our artist in residence studio. We have a couple of different spaces where the artists can work while on campus. So this one shown here is our larger studio space. And this is just, we call it the Air Studio. We also have a studio in the Sculpture Foundry building. And then also they can work in the different studios. So IA has a lot of different, there's ceramics, there's photography, there's printmaking, there's jewelry, there's sculpture. So the artists are able to not only have their own space to sort of like do research and read and, sketch, but they're also able to different studio spaces. So this is just the Air Studio. And these are just a couple of students. This was Topaz Jones. She's a great, wonderful artist. I really enjoyed working with her. But here she was making these baskets out of cedar, and then which she did cast into bronze. So here's just showing the process of how she makes her cedar baskets. And then these were a couple of students just sort of looking at what she's made. This is Golga Oscar. He was just one of our previous air artists this last semester in spring. He came from Alaska and he was working on traditional clothing and regalia. And he was also making these really cool beadwork. I think they were Vans or Converse, but he was doing some beadwork and it was really cool. So this is just him interacting with a guest during one of the open studios and just sort of talking about his process. And often the artists will have like lay out their materials, just so everyone is able to sort of just get an idea of what they're working on, what materials they use, and just sort of like see how this process is coming together. This is Jerry Brown. He's a painter. He also was in the spring semester. And this is also just during open studio. So we have a lot of different interactions when the artists are here on campus. So we do want to dedicate, again, a space for them to work and but we also want to make sure that they're engaging with our community and also that our community is engaging with them. So they'll participate in like classroom visits, studio art critiques, oral history interviews. So one of the components that we're starting right now is our archivist is collecting oral histories from each of our air artists, and those are then put into our IAIA archives, which is really neat because then people can, go and if they're wanting to do research on a certain artist or just sort of look at things, it's all archived there. Community lectures and informal gatherings on and off campus. And some of the artists also lead hands-on workshops. Thank you. And this is just some more photos. So on the sort of like right-hand side, Margarita Paz Pedro was one of our air artists a couple years ago, I think right before the pandemic hit. And she was working with one of I think it was the ceramic class. And Margarita, she works in ceramics and she also creates these beautiful, amazing ceramic tile murals. She's done plenty of them around New Mexico. So we were really blessed to have her on campus. So what she did is she worked with the ceramic students and they sort of just came up with an idea of what type of ceramic tile mural they would like to see. So they really was a collaborative process in like the designing of it, the naming, the title of it. Each of the students were able to create like their own ceramic piece. So it was just a really long sort of couple week process, and then we installed it on campus. I wish I would have put a photo on it, but it was really neat. So we still have that beautiful mural outside our campus. Community engagement. So the air artists are able to engage with the community in many ways. So this photo here is just showing sort of a cookout with Margarita that the students have. And then this last semester, one of our instructors, they invited a local organization who builds adobes and teaches that process. And they came on campus and they were building some adobes. And one of our air artists went outside, Jerry Brown, actually, who just saw, went outside and he helped create some of those adobes with the class. So there's just a lot of different ways to interact. And this is just a way to sort of build our relationship with our artists and our community and just build connections. And then the engagement furthers the bond between Native artists and people in the community. And it's really great because we do build these relationships. It's not like, you're an artist here and then you produce work and then you leave. We really encourage artists to stay in contact with us. And we invite them after their residency to maybe do like guest lectures in the classroom, critiques, also workshops. We've had a couple of artists come in and do workshops. Yeah, so it's just, continuing that relationship and that bond that we've created. So yeah, so these are just some of our workshops. This was actually, we did a workshop for the American Indian College Fund. This, again, was also with Margarita. So every semester, AIR artists conduct workshops that promote the transfer of knowledge. So this can be either in traditional work and technique and material or contemporary. And also it promotes cultural knowledge-based systems and values. And also the workshops continue to push artistic boundaries. And the great thing about this is whenever we do have an artist come in to do one of these workshops, even if they're not like a current AIR artist and we bring in a previous one, we will pay the artist a stipend to come in for their time. And then we'll also cover all of the costs of the materials, which is great. So the students are able to participate in this. Next slide, thank you. So tips for applying to residency. So some of the tips that I would suggest is just really review and read the application thoroughly, understand what it's asking and what we need of you. When applying, include all the required information. So unfortunately, sometimes we get artists who do not fill out or do not include all the required information, such as maybe like a portfolio, images of their work, things like that. So unfortunately, when that happens, we cannot, move their application onto the committee. So just really make sure that you are including all of the required information, and just learn how to write about your practice, your art, and the projects that you're working on, because this is how you will communicate with the selection committee. So it's just really, this is like your one chance, is just to how to convey what you're doing. And it just, a strong application, it just really stands out. And those are the ones that are usually selected by the committee, is just the ones that are able to really communicate. And then ask for assistance.
Sorry. A
Yes.
quick question. I just thought we could hit it as we're going. In the chat, we've got Joseph asking, can you apply, since you're in the application part, can you apply to the IAIA residency if you have an AFA?
Yes. So we don't require like any degrees or anything like that, because we understand that artists come from, different backgrounds. So that's it. You don't have to have a degree. I think there's master artists within their communities that don't hold degrees, and some that hold, doctorates, and this range is wonderful. It's just about, creating art and building community. So yeah, you can apply.
Cool. Thank you.
But so asking for assistance sometimes, if you have a question or you're not understanding the application, is there a number on the form where you can, reach out to somebody, and just, clarify what is needed. We've also had people like stop in our office and just come in, and I've helped them with their application because, they might be an elder who might not have, internet, or might not know how to upload a portfolio. So we've helped them with that, just so, ask for help.
Ask for help. Yeah, it looks like we do have folks asking specifically about this application process, and maybe do you want to direct them toward maybe a place online, or a place they can go for help? We got some specific questions about this residency in particular.
Yeah, so if you go on to the IAIA website, on the tabs on the top, it's like museum, academics. There's a section there where it says Research Center. So if you click on the Research Center, there's a tab also under that says Artist in Residence. And then it'll give you a breakdown of what our stipend is, what we cover, and then our application will be on there, and all of our contact information. So right now, our application is not open. We should have that open within the next month or two. We open it once a year. We leave it open for a couple of months, and we'll select artists for the 2025 year. So check back. If it's not open, check back within a month or two, and it should be
Cool.
open.
Cool. Thank you. Yes. And then is that cool? That's what I thought. Nice. Okay. I'm gonna click. Cool. Thank you so much, Angelica. Yeah, we really appreciate that info and a great model. And I we'll dive into some sort of zooming out to think about both these programs in like an overall way and think about, all right, how do we design good models? And yeah, very just rolling along. A very cool model now in the southern part of the state is the Roswell Artist-in-Residence Program. And we have Katelyn here from the Roswell Artist-in-Residence Program to talk about that. So thank you very much for joining us here, Katelyn, today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And thanks to all the attendees. This is fun. Let me go ahead and share screen real quick. So like Mike said, the Roswell Artist-in-Residence Foundation was founded in 1967 by a man named Don Anderson. And under the foundation, we now have the residency program itself. And as you can see on the right here, the Anderson Museum of Contemporary Art, which houses all of the work, acquisitions from alumni artists who have come through the program. And then we also have our original residency site, which we call the Historic Studios at Brendo Road, which is a place, and I can go into a little bit more detail later, but it's a place for alumni to move off, a nice place for the alumni to move from, going from the residency if they decide to stay in Roswell. And I can, again, go into detail about how that helps benefit the community and alumni connections, et cetera. So what you're seeing on the left here is the common area for the residency site. We invite 6 artists every year they get a 12-month period. They come on a staggering basis. Usually about 2 artists come at a time, and then there's a several-month break, and then 2 more roll off and 2 more come on. All throughout the year. Let's see here. So the space here is a common area. It's got a little kitchenette and a little living room, a library, and on the back side, we have 2 apartments for guests to stay in, and we have some of our studios in this space as well. So here's an aerial view of the residency site. We sit on approximately 40,000 acres, or 4,000. Well, now I'm getting my numbers confused. Anyways, a lot of land. And we're just outside of the community, the city of Roswell. So we're actually in the county, but really short jaunt into town if you need anything. So every artist who come, they each get their own house attached studio. They get a monthly stipend, and right now we're able to provide a material stipend via the Hammersley grant that we just re-grant directly to the artist. The houses are all 3 bedrooms, so families, artists can come with their families. They're all furnished, and so they really just bring their supplies, their art supplies, some sheets, and they're settled for the year. Here's some of our studio spaces. So as I said, they each get their own private studio, and then we have communal studio spaces. So we have a kiln room, a digital print lab, a metal shop, a wood shop. Let's see here. A litho studio. And as I was kind of reviewing IAIA, I noticed on your website, you have Jordan Craig on your website, and this is Jordan right here. She also came through our residency program. She's a delightful person and wonderful artist. Here she is working with the Tamarind Institute. So every summer we have recent Tamarind graduates come down to work with our artist. The artist can opt out if they're not interested. A lot of the artists haven't worked with lithography before, so it's a brand new experience, or it's just a nice way to offer additional support if that is a medium that they're already working in. Each Tamarind graduate, we have about 2 to 3 a year, and they come up for about 10 days. So it's another nice way of kind of infusing the northern part of the state with the southern part of the state with the Tamarind Rare relationship. About mid to end of the artist's stay here, about 6 to 9 months into their stay, the Roswell Museum partners with us to offer each artist that we have a solo exhibition. It's completely up to the artist's discretion. We've had a few that have opted out of the solo exhibition for just life circumstances, or they just wanted that time to focus on work. And we really have no obligations, and we pride ourselves on that. Every artist, we want them to have the stay that they desire. This artist was a woman named Lauren Clay. She came about 2 or 3 years ago. Their shows are up for about 8 weeks. When the show opens, it opens on a Friday night, and the artists give a lecture. There's a reception for all of the community to go in and see the work. And then everybody moves about half a mile down the road to our museum, the Anderson Museum of Contemporary Art, where we host a dinner in their honor. And it just feels very celebratory. It brings the community together, and it's a lot of fun. So here's the Anderson Museum. It's 22,000 square feet. We've added on gallery after gallery over time, and we're at our max capacity now, but we have every artist represented, with the exception of 2, every artist represented in our permanent collection. The work in this gallery right here is by our founder, Don Anderson, which is the main kind of central gallery that you walk into. The museum's free. It's open 7 days a week, and we just view it as a way to infuse the arts into our community. We also have a Bosendorfer piano, which you can see right here. So we offer a lot of music events for the community. Most of them are free, or we accept donations to just help with those costs. Let's see here. A few more gallery photos. And then this is the Historic Studios at Brendo. So this was the original site of our residency program. There's 6 houses and 11 artist studios. When we moved to the new location, which we built, we actually added a 7th house so that we could have 6 artists and the residency director can live on site. Each house is a little bit unique. And this center area is some of the houses have attached studios, but these are additional studio spaces. So again, if artists are here with partners, there's additional studio spaces for them. And we'd love for you to just stay in touch and keep up with what we're doing. You can subscribe to our newsletter or follow us on our social channels. I'm here to answer any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katelyn. What a cool program. And wow, like so extensive. And I know when I was down in Roswell with my colleague Rashan Ahmad, and we were visiting with everybody, and everybody just had such great things to say about this program. And Lori Roof also sent me some information about the economic impact on the community and how like the artists who like fellows, sorry, remain in New Mexico post-residency. And there's something like, add this up here, it's something like 28%, something like, sorry, I'm reading it wrong, but a whole bunch of the artists and fellows who go through this program stay in New Mexico and continue contributing to their communities. And it's very cool. And I think, let me sort of kick off that question to both of you. I'm curious about, because I know that both of you are in like a nice position well, maybe I'm wrong about this, of funding and all of these great things that you do for the artists and fellows. We have IAIA. Let me ask you a little bit about your funding. Like, is it all funded by the university? Or do you have to go get funding to do all these great things that you do?
A
Angelica.
lot of our funding is through grants. So we're
Cool.
always looking for different grants to fund either the Artist-in-Residence Program or also part of the Artist-in-Residence Program. There's a different component, which is the Journey Home internship program and apprenticeship program, and that is for IAIA students.
Oh,
And
cool.
that is just, a paid internship or apprenticeship through the school. And so it comes from some of the same grant funding. So like this summer, we have 2 students who are doing apprenticeships, and they're working with previous AIR artists. So we're able to fund those apprenticeships for the students and provide them like a stipend throughout the summer. But yes, sorry, I got off track there.
No,
Yes,
no, that's awesome.
grant,
Yeah.
grant funding. And then one of our grants, course grants, they have certain stipulations and you have to meet this criteria. So we try to find other grants so we can get more of like a wide range of artists coming in.
Yeah. And it's I guess also maybe that, and to sort of continue this question to you, Katelyn, like for folks out there who are trying to start or grow their artists in residence programs, or retreats, what tips would you give somebody to actually like measure the data of the impact on the community in order to make a good case to like funders or local public partners like cities and whatnot to say, hey, this is really cool, please give us money, because you got to collect data to show that impact, right? So what tips, I feel like you guys have done a good job. So like what tips would you give other artists in residence programs out there in terms of collecting that data?
Ooh, that's a tough question.
Sorry.
And that's okay. In terms of, how we got our start, we were lucky enough and blessed enough to have received an endowment from our founder before his passing, which is really makes up the bulk of our budget, our operating budget. And then we also, we do apply for grants, and the Brenda property is a tiny bit of an income generator. We keep it pretty low. The rents at a pretty affordable rate,
cool.
so that it's not a burden on them. It's a continuation of the gift while also supporting our program. So that helps.
Oh, that's cool.
And so some oil and gas royalty interest, which was also left by our founder, and then applying for grants. Currently, we are trying to expand our development because things are just getting a little bit stickier. And so we're kind of in the midst of this, funding. Right. And a lot of the advice we've received is, you can have a fundraiser and you can apply for grants, but the best way to generate income is to ask, partner with people in the community to bring that money in. And so that's something we're focused on right now, not only just to keep up with the state of the economy, but also to, slowly but surely grow our program and the benefits that we want to give our artists. As far as metrics go, I think it's going to be on an individual basis. Different areas of the state are going to require different things. And so I feel like it's kind of a broad question to answer.
No, totally. No, I think that's a really important point, that it is contextual to the individual community and has to respond to what the individual community sort of is looking for, or, what it considers a benefit for itself, and so I think that's a really good point. Let me ask, and because we have a question in the chat, thinking about, staying on this topic of design, and Laura Martin Baseman asks, if you're designing a residency, what things do you ask in an application? So like, and I'll put this question to Angelica, like when you think about building this application, how do you build it? Does that make sense?
Yes, so we ask questions just like what their project is, like what do they want to work on when they're here. We also ask like what studio space might they need? Like do they need to work in a large space that has a sink maybe? Also we ask what facilities do they want to use? Do they want to use the photography studio? We also ask them to put together a portfolio so we can see their artwork. They can upload a CV or a resume, so we could just sort of see like what shows they may have been or what their education is, or different types of things like that. And also like what with their stipend money, what materials might they need? Will they need to buy paints, that kind of stuff? Yeah, I think that's questions like that.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
we
What
can sort of
about, oh, sorry,
plan
go ahead.
how we can help, plan. So when they are on campus, we can connect with the photography professor and, see what equipment they have, what equipment do we need to order and buy and supply for the studio so that the artists, when they come, we're prepared for them.
Yeah, and I've been putting, based on what y'all are both saying, I've been sort of turning them into tips in the chat, which I haven't done for any other panel, but it just suddenly occurred to me that it would be a good idea. So I'd say like that's really smart, like to connect whatever your local community is, like in your case, it's IAIA, right? So it's the photography professors and the equipment, but to connect with the local community to sort of pull assets and figure out how to connect those assets with residents. And so I think that's a great idea. And then, yeah, sort of putting the same question to you as well, Katelyn, in thinking about when you're designing this application, and maybe we can use this opportunity also to answer one of the questions in the chat, which is about a few specific application questions, like, is the Roswell Artist-in-Residence Program for New Mexico residents only? Yeah, what do you think about when you are, designing and tweaking the application process year by year? Because I imagine you tweak it a little bit as you go.
Yeah, so our residency director, Larry Bob Phillips, conducts the application every year, kind of runs the application, but I pulled it up so that I was prepared for this question. The things that are on our application: artist name, phone number, email address. I mean, this is nitty gritty, but if I'm just going to answer it in case you're interested. Your date of birth, your current address, your current occupation. If you're bringing a dog, we allow dogs, so we just like to know, are we going to have 7 dogs at one time? Not that it matters. Ethnic background, race, comments on race, because it's a checkbox. The race section in our program that we use, which is submittable, is a checkbox. So some artists like to make comments on their race because the checkbox doesn't quite answer per the artist. We ask for a brief bio, their website, artist statement, statement of intent, their CV, their medium, and then of course work samples. And we ask for about 15 to 20 work samples. And to answer your other question, artists from all over the world apply. We usually have one international artist, not because it's set up that way. It's just that's the way it seems to kind of happen. And to give you a little perspective, we have usually between 600 and 650 applicants apply, and we choose 6.
Wow.
So it's very competitive, and kind of heartbreaking to not be able to say yes to everybody.
Sure. That's really, yeah. I mean, both, it's like doomed by your own success, right? And let me ask you guys a sort of difficult question, and I'll talk about it for a second too, to give you some time to think about it because it's a hard one. But I think it's relevant for the creative industries division and thinking about creatives, because these are exciting models to bring communities together. And I remember going out to El Moro, for example, in the western part of the state, and this incredibly well-connected community, all helping each other out. And one person in that community had this really awesome idea for a retreat. And everybody was saying like, oh yeah, we'll help you out with that. And it just seemed like this really cool idea to be an economic driver for that community, but they are not in a position to like have either a university or a large foundation sort of backing them, right? So my hard question is, if you had to do all of this from scratch, but make it like a private business that would sort of have to sustain itself, like what would you do? And while you think about that answer, one thing that I sort of think about is like we were talking about the open studio space. And I was thinking like, wow, like if I were like someone coming in to like meet these really cool artists, like, I mean, this is very simple and maybe kind of crass, but like I would pay just to hang out, right? And see their work, see the studio. It's also maybe a good opportunity for the artists themselves to like sign up folks for like a Patreon, right? Like if folks don't know what patreon.com is, it's like you can ongoing pay someone month by month for their creative work and you sort of subscribe to it. But now that I've filibustered for a second, let me toss it back out to you guys. If you had to think about and do this all from scratch without big foundation or university support, where would you start? And maybe I'll throw it to Angelica first. Just, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, maybe just, I guess, reach out to the community and reach out to maybe museums or other organizations or institutions who might be interested in help supporting this sort of program. I think a lot of museums here in Santa Fe, and I'm sure in other areas, they have, maybe like a studio space, or maybe they can help, fund part of a project or materials. So yeah, just I guess reaching out to other institutions and organizations to see how we can partner up and sort of help support one another.
Yeah, that's a really good answer too. When you think about applying for grants, because all of those things you just mentioned represent in-kind donations, right? So if I donate a space or I donate my time or whatever, even if that's not a direct financial contribution, that's an in-kind donation, which a lot of these well, all of these big grants will ask for, so I think that's a great tip. How about you, Katelyn? Like if you had to start all over, besides the answer, maybe I wouldn't do it at all. I don't know. But if you had to start all over and do it from scratch as a business, what would you do?
Well, I think it depends on the scope of what you're individually looking at. But I guess if it was, helping artists, I think the first thing would just if you had a little bit of a lump sum of money and you started inviting artists to your program, I would say local artists. That way they're already in their homes and you give them a stipend. And that way they can, take the time on the weekend instead of their side hustle. They can now have the stipend money to devote to practice, their artwork. And, maybe find like for us, there's a local coffee shop and there's a local bistro that display local artists' work. So partner with somebody like that to now, if you're thinking about this as like, a local artist, hey, we've given you a stipend, and maybe after 6 months, then we'll have a little solo show at the coffee shop. And that's an in-kind thing that the coffee shop's bringing. And slowly kind of building your awareness and your profile. So when you do go to write grants, you can say, look what we've already done. I also liked Angela's idea of partnering with a local, or not a local, but like an in-state institution or museum, asking if they're interested in doing like a satellite residency. But I think, you know, you have to be sustainable, you have to start slow and you slowly build. And I think offering stipends would be the probably the easiest thing. You don't have a building to maintain, you don't have utilities to pay. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And it also hearing both of you talk about sort of really responding to, like, bringing in the local community is also responding to the local community, right? And figuring out, what does the local community need, right? Like, what need are we filling? And that's been a theme, a really interesting theme throughout all the panels this week, of that sort of, I mean, I guess you can call it like a service or an entrepreneurial mindset, that it's not just like, what do I want to do? It's like, what need am I filling, right? And it also makes me think about one thing that is sort of a really cool potential for more of these and more ideas, is that in New Mexico, especially in very rural spaces, New Mexico has just really beautiful land, right? And really beautiful places, and that is a good thing. That is sort of a natural partnership with artists and creatives, right? Artists and creatives want to go, and really anybody, but artists and creatives especially, want to go hang out in beautiful landscapes for a sustained amount of time, right? And I'm curious, with both of your programs, because you both exist in sort of interesting, like, geographic areas, right? In Santa Fe and in Roswell. How does your region itself, you know, thinking about geography, socioeconomic region, how does your region itself part of the draw of your program? Does that question make sense? Is it too, like, fuzzy, or does it make sense?
Yeah, I think for us, a lot of artists come from bigger cities, New York City, and they fly into Albuquerque. They used to fly into Albuquerque. Now we have a flight, but they said that it was a 3-hour drive down to Roswell, and it was so eerie, and I felt uncomfortable that I could see just for forever, and there was no buildings, and there was just horizon, and it was kind of weird. And then I got into my space, and I felt like I could just let go. And I think because we are on so much land and there's not a whole lot around, it really just allows the artist to kind of unplug and just relax a little bit. And I mean, some people do like all that high energy that the cities provide, but just a different way of kind of moving through the land, you know.
Yeah.
Roswell is a little bit difficult too, because sometimes we feel like we're a little bit not in competition, but there's, especially with grant writing, it seems like there's so much going on in the Santa Fe and Albuquerque area, and we feel like those dollars go more easily to them rather than to the rural communities. But you know, we're not letting it stop us. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then Angelica, how about for you? Like, I mean, IAI, I mean, like, this is sort of a IAIA is there, right? And it's in Santa Fe, but you know, it's also very uniquely its own thing, right?
Yeah, so our campus grounds, they're amazing, they're beautiful. We're a little bit sort of like, we're in Santa Fe, but we're like on the sort of like outskirts. So there is a lot of like land that surrounds us. We have a beautiful land grant program. We have a garden here where we grow a lot of different fruits and vegetables. And our campus, just the way it's built, it just is very, I guess, relaxing and a great place to be. And also, we have some of our artists who, we had one who painted landscapes and she would, you know, sort of like take these little day trips just outside of Santa Fe and different areas in New Mexico, and just sort of like, you know, go on hikes and take photographs and just really get inspiration from the surrounding areas. I've had an artist paint just the landscape outside here on the IA campus. And then we also try to utilize our local galleries and museums and take the artists to maybe look at collections, look at our own collection, and also meet with different curators and look at different exhibitions, and just go to like exhibition openings and just sort of, you know, build community with our different local organizations.
Yeah, yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think like that building community with local organizations and just, I mean, there's so much, you guys are both grant writers, you know, there's so much sort of like euphemistic language in all of this, but like just getting out there, right? Like the idea that to be an artist in a place is to not just be there by yourself, but to be in a new place with new people. And I think what strikes me about both of your programs is that you do that in such a beautiful way, you know, and both of your programs are not geared around the artists just like hanging out by themselves in a studio, right? But that like, you know, you're here in a place where people already live, you know, and you're part of it now. And I think that speaks to both your program's success, also in like the way that residents sort of continue to be part of the community, whether they live there, whether they live elsewhere in New Mexico. Yeah. And I think that just strikes me as like a really smart model. So we got some very specific questions in the chat here that we can, I don't know if you want to answer this, where there might be a little private to answer about the budget for each artist who participates. But if you feel comfortable talking about that, and I think, you know, maybe a way to frame that question is to think about really how much it takes, so folks have a sense of how much it takes to bring one person into a program like both of yours that are so cool and extensive and offer so much to the individual sort of fellow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I can answer that. We're a nonprofit, so you could go ahead and look up our tax return if you want. And that's actually a hot tip. If you are thinking about starting your own residency, when you're researching residencies around the country, most of them are nonprofits, and you can, you know, look up their tax returns, which kind of gives you a bird's eye view of what they're doing and what the cost of running these programs are. So for us, it's about $45,000 annually per artist. And that does not include our any payroll expenses. That'll keep private, but semi-private. And that does not include, you know, the original site that it takes to get it going. So
Wow.
that's where we are now.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. How about you, Angelica?
You can also find all of our information on our website. It'll list how much you get for per year residency. So for a 2-week residency, the stipend is $1,500, and for an 8-week residency, it's $6,000, and for a 4-week residency, it's $3,000. And that's just their stipend. We also give them a $500 to buy materials, so that it could be paint, whatever they need to buy. And then we also cover housing and food. We cover travel, their way to Santa Fe, their way back. And I think it's around $200 for fuel. So, you know, driving to their apartment and to campus. And I'm trying to think what else. Oh, and then if, let's just say, there's a jeweler and they need like a certain tool for the jewelry studio and we don't have that, then we'll go ahead and purchase that for our studio space. just so, like I mentioned before, that we're prepared and we have what they need.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad that you mentioned the travel. And I think both of you talked about families and travel. And I think that these sort of equity issues and standards, maybe, I don't know, are there like equity standards for artists in residence programs that like folks can like agree to if they want or be part of?
Not that I've seen, but I'm gonna have to look that up.
That'd be kind of cool if that existed. I just literally, I don't know. I just thought of that. It's not like I have like an answer for that. But that would be cool. And it also, I want to, speaking of equity, I want to come back to something that Katelyn said that I thought was pretty cool and that I've seen happen in other places, this idea of at-home residencies, you know, and just to acknowledge and support local artists, to be able to have that time out of their day, out of their work, to do their art. And I've seen like the city of Sacramento do that in an interesting way. And I'm sure there's lots and lots that I don't know about. But I feel like that's a really nice sort of image to end on, as we've heard so much about these wonderful programs through IAIA and through the Roswell Artist-in-Residence Program. I think that what both of these programs do so beautifully is they really bring in folks from the outside to really be a part of New Mexico and a part of these communities, not to just be sort of have a place to, you know, just be artists and take from, but to be a part of these communities. And so kudos to both of you and your programs. And I think if it were me, that's one of the biggest things I would take away from the models of both your programs, is how you help the local community sort of benefit from these artists' presence as well as the artists benefit, you know? So yeah, thank you both so much. Thank you to Angelica from IAIA. Thank you to Katelyn from Roswell Artist-in-Residence Program Foundation for joining us and telling us. And I encourage folks to look up more information and to, you know, start their own artist-in-residence and retreat programs out there. All right, stay cool in this heat wave. Thank you all very much. Have a great weekend. And we will just keep talking about this as we go. All right. Thank you both very much. Thanks to everyone who joined us.
Bye.
Bye.